Hi everybody, Joe here from SHUTTERSPEAK Photography. Very nice to see your smiling faces again here on YouTube. So today I had gotten myself a copy of Luminar AI Beta 2 from Skylum to evaluate and check out and show you guys. And since it's a beautiful morning here in New York, I was able to go out and snap some pictures of a little cabin that kind of sits on a peninsula along the water that I've been trying to get a few pictures of. It's the type of thing where you can only go at low tide. And so today it was low tide. It's a beautiful day. We got out there, we snapped some pictures. So it's going to be really interesting to see what Luminar AI can do using its template system and using some of the editing tools. So let's see if we can't take one of those landscape photos and work some magic. So, hey, before we get started, I'd just like to say thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. And if anything in this video does help you out, please help me out by hitting subscribe and ring the bell so you get notified of future updates. Hit the like button and feel free to comment. I do try and answer a lot of the comments. So, hey, now that that's all out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use Luminar AI Beta 2 on the Mac. I have both the Windows version and the Mac version. However, the Mac version is a little bit further along in terms of features, and there's some bugs in the Windows 10 version that just need to be worked out. And of course, there's still plenty of time for that because, you know, again, we're still in beta copies, and well, that's what betas are for, right? So I am using Big Sur for the Mac OS, the latest Mac OS operating system, and Luminar AI is working perfectly in that operating system. So to get started, along the lines of importing, we just hit the plus right here and we could say add folder with images or add a single image. So I'm going to add a folder with images. And I'm just going to navigate to the directory, and here's the directory I want to add, and I'm going to say add folder. And now Luminar has very rapidly, as you see, added that folder, and you can see how quickly it imports the folders. It's really pretty amazing, you know, when comparing this to, say, Lightroom or something like that. So 74 photos, I mean, in a blink of an eye. I didn't cut the video or pause or anything like that. I mean, it was literally that fast. 74 photos, I mean, almost instantly. So that's pretty amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and select this one here. You know, happen to catch the seagull as he was going through the image here. We could probably use a little more space up in the sky. In this photo, it got cropped a little bit tight. Unfortunately, that's not something Luminar can do, but obviously a very easy fix in Photoshop. But that's something that we could take care of later on, but a little bit also beyond the scope of this video, since we're focusing on Luminar AI. So now that we've chosen the image that we want to work with, all we have to do is hit templates. Okay, and the AI analyzes the photo, and you see right off the bat it's made some suggestions, and it's giving us for this photo waterscapes, overcast. I don't really see overcast in this, but that's okay. I mean, it still could be cool. Scenery, that's definitely kind of nailed it. And then we have the option to see all the different templates down here, and all the different landscape templates and all the other templates that Luminar has to offer, should we not want to go with what's being recommended. But given the scope again of this video, just seeing what templates can do, I'm going to click on waterscapes, and it's brought up the waterscape collection, and now I have a few different templates that I could try out. So all I have to do is just click them, and you see how quickly the effects are applied, which is really nice. The speed of Luminar AI is really quite impressive thus far. And again, this is still beta. And I kind of like this one, dark and rich. That one looks nice. That one's okay. All right, so let's say I like this one best. Now, according to Luminar, you could just hit dark and rich, this template, and be done and move right on to export. And you know, it's done a decent job, but you know, I always like to kind of play, and to me, the fun of taking these pictures is then going out and being able to play with these files afterwards and create something new. So as much as I like it, I still want to move on to the edit screen, and I think that'll be fun for everyone who's watching this as well, because, hey, we want to see what Luminar AI can do, so let's put it to the test. So we have the slider down here, and this can change how much of the template is put in from nothing all the way up to full. And I think I'm going to dial it back a little bit, maybe to right around there somewhere. And now all I need to do is just hit the edit key, and we moved on now to the next section where we can now refine and fine-tune this image. Okay, so one of the fun features of Luminar AI is composition AI, where the AI will look at this photo for you and suggest a crop. So the way to work this is just hit this button right here, Composition AI. It's going to analyze the image and it'll suggest a crop for us. Now, you see it really applied the rule of thirds very effectively there, putting the cottage right in that third corner, but I don't particularly like it. It wouldn't be the way I would do it. So, but what I would do is I would probably put it somewhere around there. And I like that better, and maybe I might drag it out a little bit further. So, and you know, listen, composition AI, sometimes it gets it right, and sometimes it doesn't, or sometimes it just gives you a starting point. And I probably bring this up a little bit. So that's kind of how I think I would like it, and all you got to do is hit enter, and the changes are applied. Okay, so again, composition AI, it's just going to give you an idea, and it's up to you to decide where you want to go with it. Next tool down is erase, and it looks like I do actually have a little spot right there, maybe something that was on the lens. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit that and get rid of it. And just hit erase. And it's going to apply that. And this is non-destructive, so we can actually go back and correct that. So it took that spot away very nicely. And again, like I said, we just really just go right back and remove that. So that's a big change from the previous version of Luminar, is that this is a non-destructive form of erase. But at any rate, we're going to just get rid of that jogger back there who was wearing red. Let's hit erase and just see how that does. And it applies the effect for us, and then we're going to zoom in and we're going to take a look and see how it did. So, I mean, it looks like it did a good job. Let's bring it up to 100 again, and let's move over to that spot, and it seems like the jogger is gone. All right, so moving on to the light tab in Essentials. Now we can kind of play around a little bit with tint and exposure and smart contrast, and I'm kind of happy with the temperature, but maybe we could try and just warm it up maybe just a little bit. And actually that kind of makes a nice change, brings out a little bit more warm tones in the rocks, and I kind of like that. Exposure looks good. I don't think I'm going to play with exposure. And let's play around a little bit with the smart contrast and see where that gets us. So let's bring it all the way up and let's see what it does. And I'm going to bring it all the way down just so we can see. And so I think I'm going to bring it somewhere around here, and that looks nice. I might bring the highlights down just slightly. Let's bring the whites down a little bit to get those windows just to be a little bit less bright. And let's see how we can do with maybe deepening our blacks a little bit. And that kind of looks nice right around there. Let's move over to Enhance AI. And here is kind of where some of the magic with Luminar does happen. So let's see what the Accent AI does for us. We'll bring that up. And that really kind of brings in a lot of sharpness in the rocks and stuff like that. And I kind of find that a little bit distracting, so I'm going to dial that back. Now let's look at the Sky Enhancer. And that kind of gives us a nice little darkening to the sky there. It's not bad. And we can look at structure. And structure may not necessarily be good for this image, and again, it really is bringing in too much of the rocks. So what we could do with this is maybe paint in a mask and maybe just paint it in over the building so that it's not affecting the rest of the image. So we got it pretty much. Now I'm just going to hold the Alt key and take it off the rocks and dial it back a little bit in the spots where it shouldn't have gone to. And we'll make this a little bit smaller. Dial a little bit more in, and now we'll put a little structure right into that area. So let's turn that mask off, and we'll bring a little bit of a boost up to structure, and that looks nice. Okay, so I'm happy with that, and move over to color. Oops, let's move back to color. There we go. So the vibration and vibrance is a little bit low for this, so let's move it up a little bit, and maybe that might add in a little bit too much. So yeah, we'll keep it around there. And again, if we move the saturation, what saturation is going to do is it's going to kind of bring in those mid-tones, the skin tones, and that's going to really affect these rocks, and I don't want to affect the rocks. So vibrance is a better choice because it's going to ignore a lot of these tones in here, because vibrance tends to ignore the skin tones, where saturation increases every tone. So I'll leave it right over there, and then we could go into the HSL and really tweak out the colors. So maybe I might want to bring up the green in this image a little bit. So let's actually move over to luminance. Let's see what luminance does for the greens. Make those greens a little bit brighter. And also the reds, I think. I'd like to see more of that roof. And maybe a little more saturation of the red. And maybe a little bit more of the green to really get that building to pop out. And, you know, we're not affecting the rest of the image. So I like that, and that's looking good. And we're not going to convert to black and white, but certainly we could. Not what I want to do for this image, though. Now we're in the details area, and we can play around a little bit with the details of this image, and yeah, really kind of want to soften this area. So let's see what we can do. This may be something where we need to brush in a little bit. Okay, so that actually does a nice job, but I just want to confine it to this area here with the rocks. So I'll just paint in a quick mask there. Let's hide that mask. Okay, so we're really just affecting that area and not the structure. And that looks good because, like I said, I don't want the rocks really to be super distracting. So I want to keep the details of those rocks down a little bit. And we're going to bring them way down. And that kind of works for me. I'm happy with that. All right, so we have some masking for detail, and we can play around with this, and let's see what that does for us. Up and down. And somewhere there, I think it's making a little bit of a difference for us. We have some sharpening masking, which, let's see if the beta is going to let us show that. Doesn't look like it will. So that may be something that is not finished yet for this version. All right, moving on to denoise. I don't see a lot of issues with noise in this, so I'm not really going to play around with this. This is certainly a landscape photo, so we don't really have much foliage, but let's take a look at what the enhancer does. And it really isn't doing much. It's really actually affecting the cottage, which I don't want, so we're going to keep that off. Maybe dehaze a little bit. Maybe just a touch. And let's see what golden hour does for us. Too much of a glow, and that's not something I'm looking for. And let's see if we want to add a vignette. Make this our subject. Right there. And now apply a little vignetting. And now you see, because I've chosen the subject, how the vignetting he's keeping the center point of the cottage and the bird, which I kind of like, and that's certainly what I would want. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to dial it back to here, around -57. That looks nice. And you have a few options there on how you can handle vignetting, but I kind of like the way it did it on its own. From here, we can go over to the Creative tab, and again, we could add in change of the sky. We could augment the sky with different objects, but in this photo, we don't really need to do that. Atmosphere, I'm not going to lay in any fog or anything like that. Sun rays, I mean, we could throw in sun rays if we wanted to. I don't think that this really needs it, but just to show you how we just place the sun wherever we want. And I would put it actually out of frame and maybe put it somewhere over there, but dial it way back if we were going to do something like that. But again, this isn't something that I think the image needs, nor would I want for this image. So, but we have some options with that. We can go over to the Dramatic tab, and let's see what that does for us. Add in a little bit of drama to the image, and maybe just a touch on that. Now, here's some of the fun of Luminar is mood, which is really LUTs, which is lookup tables, so custom lookup tables, and this is going to affect colors overall. Now, we've already applied a template to this, so I'm not too sure how necessary this is, but you can just go through these, and like something like this, like Riverside, actually looks kind of nice. So maybe I'll apply that, and I'm just going to dial it back a little bit because it's a little bit too strong for me, but maybe right around there, and that looks nice. And you see how many choices you have there for the color lookup tables, and that's really fantastic. I like that. Toning, so we can dial this back, dial it forward, see what it does for us, and maybe just keep that at its default. Again, we can affect the highlights of with different hue and saturation settings. So this is kind of like split toning, essentially. It's not something that I'm going to do with this image, but we can change the color toning of the highlights and the shadows, as well as the balance. This is similar to in Lightroom with the new what do they call it? I guess the color grading feature. Okay, we have a matting feature now, which kind of softens everything up. Not for me on this image. Mystical kind of makes a glow to everything, but again, not something I'm going to use here. And glow is, to me, very similar, but it kind of softens everything a little bit. And this is kind of an interesting effect, but it's a little bit too paintery for me, and it's not something that I think I want to go with in this type of image. You have a bunch of different options here. A legit glow, the Orton effect, and soft Orton. So again, not something that I'm looking to do with this image, although that's not horrible actually. So maybe we'll just leave a little bit of that on there, and some advanced settings to it. And we can apply some film grain if we wanted to. And again, not something that I'm looking to do. Obviously not a portrait, so we'll skip over portrait mode, and then we can go into Pro, and we can do some corrections on distortion and chromatic abrasions, and it's not something that's in this image. We have some super contrast options, which are interesting. Let's see how the midtones get affected by that. And you can see how that pops out everything in the midtones, and it's kind of not a bad effect right around there. I'm not going to play too much with the shadow contrast. I kind of like it a little bit dark. We have some harmony tools here. And again, it's just not something that I'm going to really play too much around with here. Just reset that. Some contrast for just the colors, and you can see how that would play out. And again, it's split color warmth, so we could warm up the warm tones and the cool tones, depending on how we want to do that. Some color balance options for different shadows, midtones, and highlights. And of course, we can now dodge and burn. So if we wanted to maybe darken out some areas, which would probably affect this image, although a lot of this is pretty dark. But all right, so we could use this tool to lighten up some areas and brush in a little bit of some highlights here and there. Maybe some of these clouds we can brush in a little bit. And now we're going to just dial this way back though. And we want this to be a very, very subtle effect. All right, so we can darken up some of these shadow areas a little bit here and there. Now, obviously this looks pretty horrible right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to just really just dial this way back. It takes a little bit to catch up, and there we go. And we'll lighten up a little bit of some of the highlights here in the image. Maybe the clouds a little bit. And again, like if I bring the strength way up, you can see that obviously it's made some pretty hideous changes, but when we bring it way back down, it's subtle. Then we have our clone stamp tool. Okay, and okay, so we had a little bit of a bug there, so I went back into the history and just stepped past it. So the history tool's right down here, and we can hit that tool to bring back anywhere where we were in this image, and you can see how extensive that history tool is. Okay, so once again we ended up with that bug back right there, so I'm going to just brush that out again with the erase tool. Let the erase tool take care of that. And it's applying. Okay, and it's back. So at this point, if I'm happy with it, I could just go over here to the export, and I could save it to disk or a variety of other formats. So let's just save it to disk for now. And we have a bunch of different options here of how we want to save it in terms of size, color space, format, image quality. We'll bring that up to 90 or so. And of course we can rename it, and we'll call this Beach House. And hit save and let that export. So there you have it, Beta 2, working pretty well. A couple of things that still need to be fixed, but plenty of time for these fixes to come to fruition by Skylum. I'm pretty happy with it overall. It's fun to use, it's easy to use, and you know, it gets you to a pretty creative place, and you could do it pretty quickly if you wanted to. Again, we could have stopped the templates if we wanted to, or we move on to the edit tab and we have as much control as we desire. So there you have it, Beta 2, folks, looking pretty good. Hope you liked it. If you're looking to purchase Luminar AI, right now is a great time to do so. You can still get in at pre-release pricing. I'll have a link down in the description for that. So thanks for watching, appreciate it. Always nice to see your smiling faces here on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell if you subscribe. Subscribing kind of helps me out more than anything else, and I really appreciate that, as well as hitting the like button. Hey, it's something nice you can do for somebody, and it's free. So thank you in advance for that. So hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time, YouTube. Bye-bye.